Hey, welcome back to the Collective Online Experience. This is week 3 of Biblical Community. I hope you guys are having an incredible beginning of your week already with us starting out this Sunday. Just a reminder that the first week we talked about God created community. We looked at 3 aspects of that. We looked at how He instituted the family, how He instituted the people of God, and instituted the church in the New Testament. And last week we looked at marks of biblical community and had incredible discussion online. Just made everything I said way better. Just with the comments that you had of just 3 marks of biblical community are unity, being a servant, serving each other, and with that, there being a love because of that, and talk of Jesus, and all underneath this definition that we've been working with on biblical community week 1 and 2, which is a unified group of people experiencing life together with a common purpose of connecting to God and to each other. And so this week, to me, it felt like it was a natural place for us to, if we looked at marks of biblical community and looking at unity, serving, and talking of Jesus, for us to kind of turn that around and look at some dangers or some blocks potentially to biblical community, which I believe I'm going to call for this series. Again, not trying to be incredibly exhaustive, just looking at Acts 4, looking at those verses last week, and then looking at the verses for this week. The same verses, Acts 4, starting in verse 32 through the end of the passage. The opposite of unity being disunity. The opposite of serving, which I thought I was going to call selfishness, but luckily I had a conversation with my wife, and there's a better word there, which is being self-absorbed. And then the talk of Jesus, instead of pointing to Jesus with our actions and words, we point to others more, or to other things more than Jesus. So we're going to kind of look at that, and at the same time, I felt like there was a tie-in to the book of James, in just the things that James were writing in the 5 chapters of James to the early church, are things that I think we see lived out in disunity, in self-absorption, and in pointing to other things more than you point to Jesus. So we're going to talk about this. So I'd love to kind of know, just kind of starting out the conversation in the group chat today. And again, feel free to share if you feel like that's an authentic part of your experience today, is to share and to write things out. If you don't, then please just watch and engage that way. Just want you to know that it's always, you have the freedom to share as much as you want to, or to not share as much as you want to. Well, one of the things I'd really like to know in the chat, as you guys begin to try to just kind of start resonating with the topic today, is when you think about just hindrances to biblical community, what do you think you would say are, if you were just giving an exhaustive list, or your list, what is the top thing that could be a block to biblical community? If biblical community is going to be a unified group of people experiencing life together with a common purpose of connecting to God and to each other, then I would love to know what you think is one of the biggest blocks to that. And again, just begin to talk about that, put that in there, and because it's at least beginning to engage in your brain some of the dangers that could work against biblical community. So here's what Acts 4 says in verse 32, and this is what we based last week off of. Now the full number of those who believed were of one heart and soul. Again, it's incredible to me that the invisible part of who all of them were connected and were unified. And no one said that any of the things that belonged to him was his own, but they had everything in common. And with great power, the apostles were giving their testimony to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and great grace was upon them all. Mega grace was upon them all. There was not a needy person among them, for as many as were owners of lands or houses sold them and brought the proceeds of what was sold and laid it at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to each as any had need. Thus Joseph, who was also called by the apostles Barnabas, which means son of encouragement, a Levite a native of Cyprus, sold a field that belonged to him and brought the money and laid it at the apostles' feet. So as we're looking at Acts 4, what we're seeing is we're seeing evidence of unity, evidence of them serving each other, and evidence of the talk of Jesus. And then at the end, it kind of gives this specific example of Barnabas. So this week, now that we've kind of established that, like, we're kind of thinking through these things that could be blocks and hindrances for the collective church. When we started about 10 months ago, one of the very first things I identified is we wanted to be a group of people that we felt safe to be around each other. Now, safety can be something that we throw around and be like, well, you know, we're not meant to live a safe life it's not necessarily a safe life that's always honoring Jesus. I understand that semantic, but what we wanted to look at is that there was a community of people where our journeys, we had a safety to be able to experience those journeys and to walk those journeys, to be transparent as we wanted to, as transparent as we don't want to at times, that there's safety in that too. I also realize that with safety, there can come some things that can be hard as we learn to be safe around each other and how we share and what we share. It began to kind of morph into this idea of authentic community, that is what we are desiring to be, that we are to be an authentic community, with this idea that we are going to engage communities to spiritually connect to God and to each other, that's the purpose of the church, that we're going to engage communities to spiritually connect to God and to each other. So as we look at these areas of hindrances, basically we're saying is, what are some things that can come against us engaging these communities? What are things that can come against us truly being an authentic community? The things that kind of were important to the collective church when we started, believe that those things are even more important. And how do we look out for areas of protection? So the first one is looking at disunity. And again, I'm going to kind of try to go back and forth between what we're saying in Acts 4 and then in James. But you have evidences of unity. Now the full number of those who believed were of one heart and soul, and no one said that any of the things that belonged to him was his very own. So those who believe were on one heart and soul. That we talked about that in this time, that there was this thought, this pervasive idea that evidence of God was unity of heart and soul. That, and again, I'm not saying that it was like this Stepford Wife type, situation where it was robotic obedience, but just I'm sure that there were like little things that happened, but just in the big picture, that there was this unified heart and soul moving forward. It was the evidence of what God was doing in the early church. When you think about disunity, that it can be this massive block, I think about times in my life when community has been destroyed, or when community has been hurt or fractured, or when there was a divisiveness that came upon this unified sense. And when I think about those times and what it did to community, it felt like I was like grabbing for a life raft that just kept getting pushed further and further away. Like it was just like I could see the division happening, I can see the separation happening, and as hard as I fought, I couldn't get that back because the fracture was so great. In James 2, it gives some examples. I mean, in James 2, it talks about the sin of partiality, that because of some, what they had, that they had more favor, or that the church was more for them than it was for those that were in need. In James 3, there's the divisiveness that happens. And I just realized that I said divisiveness like a minute ago, like I'm from England, and then this time I said divisiveness. I need to just remember I'm in Arkansas and just say stuff got jacked up. And in James 3, the taming of the tongue, that the tongue is this part of our body that literally is a directional tool of what is going on inside of us, and that it can bring great disunity in what we share and the way that we bring fire often, or unhealthiness or toxicity because of what we do share. And then quarrels and fights in James 4, that there's going to be things that we don't agree about. There's going to be things that everyone that's watching this right now, there's no way that we agree about everything. Like, let's talk about favorite movies. Let's talk about favorite songs. Let's talk about the best, musicals of all time. Not that anybody really wants to discuss that, but, we could have things about church and things about religion and doctrine and theology. I mean, there are things that we're going to disagree about, but are we walking the same path in obedience toward the journey that Jesus has on the journey that Jesus has for us. I believe that quarrels and fights don't have to work against the greater journey that we're walking together in obedience. But when quarrels and fights become the focus, and we're no longer focused on being an authentic community or engaging communities to connect to God and to each other, when quarrels and fights become the central focus of what a body is doing or what a community is doing, then it fractures community. It fractures biblical community. And so disunity, and looking at James 2, partiality, the things that we say and the way that we can hurt and bring pain because of that and bring shame, and quarrels and fights. Like, I've been in churches where things like this have literally completely changed the direction of families, completely changed the direction of churches, completely changed the direction of ministries. And I've seen it in small groups and the same type of things where quarrels and fights, drama that built up around those things, people no longer felt like they could be a part of that community. And so we have to, as the collective church, whether it's in small groups or whether it's online or whether it's in gatherings, we have to know that we are unified in vision to be authentic community. We have to be unified to engage other communities to connect to God and to each other. We've got to be unified. If this is going to be the definition, we have to be a unified group of people, heart and soul, experiencing life together as a community with the common purpose of being an authentic community and engaging communities to spiritually connect to God and to each other, of connecting to God and to each other. Like, we have to commit to biblical community being that. And with that definition, there are other things that kind of can feed into that we look to be. From the chat last week, someone brought up a great point that they will know us by the way that we love, and I think that's a great opportunity to look at that too, the way that serving works into that as well. So we need to be aware of the dangers of disunity, and when we begin to see cracks in unity, that we are able to walk in love as an authentic community toward that, to where we can make sure that we are walking in obedience together toward the path that God has for us, toward what God desires for us, and that the focus of the disunity doesn't become the central deal of our church, that we are unified in the purpose and in being an authentic community. Another thing is being self-absorbed. Now, I told you again, like, I really wanted to say selfishness, but the truth is that's really not it's not the opposite necessarily of being a servant. Selfishness kind of has this connotation that you're maliciously doing something. Self-absorbed is more of the idea that there could be incredible reasons why, valid reasons why you're self-absorbed. It could be life circumstances and things. It could be that you're maliciously just going, I'm going to be the most important part of this, and the rest of you can just continue to kind of work down the priority list because I am the most important thing that's happening. So I think self-absorption of just making yourself to where everything is about you in that moment, and you've think about a sponge that is building up that water, like it just becomes of everything that it can take in that's about itself. This idea of self-absorption being the opposite of serving, I think makes a lot of sense. Because when we serve, we're able to look at a situation and step into a situation that we feel like God has placed in front of us, that we step out of our life a little bit and step into someone else's life to be able to help them, to be able to serve them, to be able to provide something for them. Self-absorbed tends to be more of, is that I can't even do anything ever because I am so focused on what my life is doing that I don't even have time to think about others. And to be honest with you, I get like that all the time. And I think the problem is that when self-absorption becomes the way that you're identified, like you're defined by just being absorbed by self, that's when it looks the opposite of being a servant. Now, I want to say something too here in this moment, and I hope that you guys hear my heart on this, because often in the things of Jesus or in religious context or in church's context, we hear a lot about, hey, make Jesus first, and then let's do others second, and then then we come after that, like we're third. And I really believe I know what people are saying with that. And they're saying, listen, make sure Jesus is the biggest part of your life, and then make sure that you're serving others, and then then we're able to look at ourselves because we want to put others before us. And I believe that those are probably all really, there's good intentions behind it. The problem is there can be a lot of shame that comes with that as well. And what I think to be a more complete picture, again, not because I said it, but is Jesus at the center of everything, and that you and your neighbors, as you live life, you're able to evaluate taking care of yourself, and then also able to evaluate when are you at a healthy place that you are you realize that you are positioned and placed by God, and you've been equipped to step into someone else's life and to serve them. That you're not so self-absorbed that you're able to recognize, hey, there is something happening over here, and I have the ability to step into that. I'm positioned and placed. I'm equipped and empowered to be able to do that. I'm at a good place to where I feel grounded in my heart, soul, mind, and body enough to be able to have the margin and space to step in and to serve. Sometimes that happens easily, and sometimes it is from a sacrificial place that we could be doing something else, but we're able to step into a need. But I also want to give margin and space that often we need to take care of ourselves. That we need to make sure that we look and are so evaluatory, that we are so curious with what's going on with ourselves, that we can identify when are we not at a good place. When have we been giving out and giving out and giving out to the point that we need some people to love on us? That we need other people to be looking to step into our life who are positioned and placed and equipped and at a good place to be able to step in? When do we need to make sure that us and Jesus and us as individuals and us and our family, that we have done work to make sure that we are healthy in heart, soul, mind, and body? Because quite honestly, we need to be careful about taking every opportunity to step into a situation. Because if you are taking, there's like two ditches. My wife loves this analogy, and I know that it's not, she wasn't the author of that, but there's this one of, man, I'm never going to do anything. I'm so self-absorbed, I'm never going to do anything. And this other one is like, I'm literally going to do every opportunity to be in front of me, that's in front of me. And me and my family will suffer because of how much I'm pouring into others, instead of realizing that we are also able to take care of ourselves. In Matthew 22:39, when it talks about love the Lord your God, and then it goes and it says, then love your neighbor as yourself. I think often I have missed out on the part there that says in verse 37, Matthew 22:37, and he said to him, you shall love the Lord with your heart, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. I think there is a likening there that we are to love our neighbor as ourself, to where we have to serve our neighbors. We also need to make sure that we are serving ourselves and our family as well. And that those two can coexist, to be able to look, okay, there's an opportunity for me to step in. Do I feel like I'm at a good place with heart, soul, mind, and body the way I'm loving God? Do I feel like I'm at a good place to where I have the margin and space in my own invisible health and in the physical health that I have, that I now am positioned and placed and equipped and empowered to be able to step in and help? Because if you are at that place to where you're able to step in, and you're at a good place and equipped and positioned and placed, and you don't, I believe that self-absorption, that there is the obvious reversal of servanthood. That instead of stepping into that situation, you've decided to go, no, I'm just going to make it, it's going to be about me. I see that I'm equipped, I'm positioned in place, I'm at a good place, I'm just not going to do it. Then I do think that looks like the opposite of being a servant. But at times, I just want us as a church to know, like, there's never an expectation that you do every service opportunity. That there's never an expectation that it's always got to be you. What I want us to do is that we be aware that sometimes we need to take care and to look inward and to evaluate what's going on in our life, and let's make sure that we're not pouring out so much that we haven't stopped and looked at us and our family. And then at the same time, I hope that our church surrounds those of us who get like that, when we all get like that, And they're the ones that go, okay, I'm at a good place. I'm positioned and placed and equipped and empowered to step into that world and step into that life. So I believe that Jesus at the center, and then you evaluating as God puts things in front of you, positioned and placed, equipped and empowered to step in, and then also realizing, hey, listen, I need the church to step up for myself, or I need the church to step up for others, because there are things that have been going on in my life that I've got to take care of and make sure that I'm at a good place, that I have margin and space. So again, I understand that about being sacrificial, but I also believe that you are to love your neighbor as yourself, and that there's got to be something that's there that is a good check and balance for where you are physically, the visible and the invisible, and that we as a church, that as things come up, maybe not everybody is ready to jump in or can jump in or at a good place to jump in, but the rest of the church jumps in and takes care of it, and then it flip-flops back and forth. And so I believe that self-absorption can get in the way of that. Self-absorption can make it to where we're just always so about us that we're just never going to pour out and we're never going to step in. So I believe that as we look at Jesus being the center, and then us realizing that we need to be looking at the opportunities that God puts in front of us, and also the opportunities for us to be able to make sure that we are okay in heart, soul, mind, and body. Then the third thing is pointing to other things but Jesus, or even more than Jesus. I mean, that's not something that's uncommon for ministry, for churches. It's not always something that's been super uncommon in my life at times. And I always have thought that I've done a good job at that, but I think it's a check in me to go, am I pointing to Jesus, to what he has done in my life? Am I glorifying? Am I trying to shine a light on what he is doing, not on what I am doing? Am I trying to make sure that people understand that God is the one that is leading the Collective Church NWA to be the Collective Church NWA, and that we aren't just pointing to this person or this program, not that programs are bad, but this person or this program or this thing, that we are constantly talking of Jesus. That one of the things I loved about the discussion last week is that there was this talk of it being so casual and formal and big picture and rifle focused and such a part of the normal everyday that it just happens naturally as you go. I believe that when we begin to talk about other things more than Jesus, if Jesus is truly at the center, that means when we get to talk about everything, it just kind of naturally happens as we talk. To where we're not even intending to talk about Jesus, it just naturally flows because we are so used to that being a part. I believe that if we never talk of the work of Jesus or what he has done, that's a huge block to community. So 3 things that we've got to be really mindful of: disunity, being self-absorbed, and pointing to other things more than Jesus. And as we think about this and we kind of move into a time of discussion, man, I want you to really to be able to think about these areas, because you as the Collective Church NWA, as you are watching this, we are all protectors of unity, being a servant, and talk of Jesus. We're all protectors against disunity, being so self-absorbed that you're never able to serve or pointing to others. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to be jerks. That doesn't mean that we have to be rude about it. What that means is we all get to look and see what God is doing and want to protect the culture of what God is doing in the Collective Church. And then we get to move forward together in obedience to what God is laying in front of us as we learn and as we exist and as we function as a community to be authentic. So today in group, I would love just to know more of your thoughts on this area. And again, you guys had so much. Coming up August 8th, we are having our gathering. Still working on location and details on food and activities after and everything like that, but we will get that to you as soon as possible. I also just want to remind you in the email that there's some stuff about the gatherings of how you can help us pull those off. And hopefully not in a way that provides a lot of extra work for you to do, but just kind of helping us in some of those areas. If you want to look back at the email, you can just click on the link and you can email me that, hey, you might be able to help in some of these areas. So anyway, have an incredible day. Thank you so much for the way that you're going to add to our online chat and discussion. Thank you for being a part of today. Have an incredible day, and we'll see you next week.